Hi guys, my name is Nick and I'm going to be your guitar teacher for this Guitar for Tweens program. So I want to say first of all, I'm sorry that we couldn't actually host this program at the Glendale Public Library, but instead we're going to be posting these videos so that you can learn guitar from home. So we're going to start right from step one, so if you've already learned some guitar, just bear with me and we'll get to a little more advanced techniques later in the video and of course in the next videos. But from the very first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that, well, of course, that you have 6 strings on your guitar and you want to tune up your strings, right? So you're going to need a tuner, right? So we'll get into a little bit later about how to tune your guitar by ear if you don't have a tuner. But if you're really a beginner, it's probably a good idea to get a tuner. I definitely recommend it because tuning is one of the most challenging parts to get the hang of. So here's what we're gonna do. First thing, this is the kind of tuner I recommend. So you can see this is, let's get that focus, right? This is a Korg CA1 chromatic tuner, right? So the basic idea is I'm going to strum the lowest sounding string, the low E, which is actually the highest towards the sky, but we'll call it the low E. And you'll see on my tuner, I'm a little bit flat, right? Because it's to the left. So if it's red on either side, red on the left means flat, meaning a little too low, meaning I'm going to need to tighten my string a bit. So I'm going to take this and tighten it up until I'm right in the middle. Sorry about the focus. Okay, so now I'm a little too sharp. I'm going to loosen the string, and then right until we get it right in the middle, so that only the green dot lights up and not the reds. So I know I'm trying to do this with one hand so you can kind of see if you've never done this with a tuner. So that's in the middle. Okay, so that's the process that we're going to be doing for each string. And just for convenience sake, I'm going to just go ahead and tune them all up now. Right, so that was pretty much in the middle, right on the green. Then I'll just do them in order. Yeah, so I would usually go over it, maybe a couple times, because even if it says you're in tune on each string, by the time you tune the other strings, the tension in those strings can actually pull the ones you already tuned out of tune. So I would go over it a couple times just to make sure it's really in tune. And you want it to be dead in the center, not showing any red on either side. So one more time I'll say it. If it's on the left side, red, then it's flat, meaning a little too low sounding, right? Low sounding like this. And high would be sounding like this. So if it's on the right, it's a little too sharp, meaning a little too high. Okay, so if it's flat, too low, you tighten. If it's high, too sharp, then you loosen. So hopefully that makes some sense to you. Let's do a quick technique in case you are stuck at home with no tuner, you just have a guitar. So here's a technique you can use to tune, right? So I'm just going to knock these out just a little bit. Okay, so what you're going to do is you just pick one and you're going to assume this one is in tune. Well, if you can, try to make it sound like mine so you can play along. Right? So match that note, and then once you have that note matched, you're going to press the 5th fret. So I'm going to count up to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th fret on that string, and that should match the next string. So that was the 6th string. So we have the 6 is the lowest sounding, and it's towards the sky. And then we have the 5th is your next. And then we have the 4th. So again, I'm going to press the 5th fret of the 5th string. And that should match my 4th, but my 4th sounds a little too low, a little too flat. So I need to tighten it so that it matches the 5th fret of my 5th string. Okay, now that's in tune, so I'm going to take my 4th string and press the 5th fret of that. And that should match my 3rd string, but my 3rd string sounds too low, right, because I knocked it out. Now I'm going to tighten it, since it was too flat, until it sounds like the 5th fret of my 4th string. Make sure you're getting the right one. So if your tuners are all in a row like this, usually the lowest string, the 6th string, this one, is closest to you, and then 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, right? And again, it's 6th, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to tune the 2nd string, and for this one, I need to press the 4th fret of the 3rd string. It's a little bit flat. Okay, now I'm going to do the 5th the 5th fret to tune my high E or my 1st string. Okay, and it sounds pretty good. So, now to introduce you to the letter names. So, our 6th string is a low E. Our 5th string is an A. My focus. My 4th string is a D. My 3rd string is a G. My 2nd string is a B. And my 1st string is high E. So the lowest, the 6th, is low E, and the highest, the 1st, is high E. Right? So then you should be in tune. I'll ring them out one at a time. It should sound like this. Okay, more or less. All right. So that should cover the string numbers, right? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the string names, right? We have low E, A, D, G, B, and E. Okay, I'll try to refer them by the numbers so that if you haven't quite memorized the string names, then you'll still be able to figure it out by counting. Okay, so another thing that I want to mention to you before I really get started is that since this is on YouTube, you can actually slow down the video. So, for example, you're going to go to the video that is playing, this one, and you're going to...
Here's what professional filmmakers say.
Sorry, we got an ad. You're going to click on either the top right or the bottom right of your screen. There should be 3 dots. It depends if you're on like a tablet or if you're on a computer or a phone. But it's probably on the top right, three dots, and it says, just a second. Okay, so it's on the top right, and then it'll say, when you click those three dots, it'll say playback speed. You can click on that, and like, so if I'm playing something that you can't quite get the hang of because you're just starting, then you go into that menu and you can slow it down to 0.75x, that's a little slower, or 0.5x, that's half the speed, a lot slower. And if really, really, really need it slowed down, then you can go to 0.25x. But at that point, if you're slowing it down that much, it's gonna start to sound distorted. So I would mostly use 0.75x and then 0.5x speed if you really are having trouble keeping up to the speed that I'm playing it at. But I'll try to pretty much take it easy since this first lesson is mostly for beginners. So, now, another thing before we get started, just going through the basics, fundamentals, right? You want to know how to hold your pick. So if you don't have a pick, you can get one, right? You might have one that looks like these. These are the kind that I like. They're the Ernie Ball Prodigy 2mm picks. And I really like these because they're a little bit thicker to hold, yet they have a sharp point for when I want to play fast, and they're not flexible. So if you're doing fast picking, it's really good for that. If you want to mostly strum, you might want one that's flexible, right? This one's a little more flexible. This is a Tortex pick. But you can see the different shapes. I prefer the smaller ones. This is considered to be standard, so choose your pick of choice, and I'm going to use the small one. Alright, but you're going to hold it the same way no matter what size you use, right? So here's the standard way to hold the pick. So you're going to take your pick, and the pointy end, you're going to set it on top of your index finger, and the pointy end is going to point the way your finger is pointing. Then you're going to take your thumb, and perpendicular or crossways, right? You're going to set your thumb on there so that you have a little bit of the pick pointing out and that your fingers are crossing. Your thumb and your first index finger are crossing, right? And then when you go to pick, you want to make sure that you don't bend your thumb backwards like this. You want to keep your thumb curved, right? And you want to keep a straight wrist. You don't want your wrist to be like this or maybe like this. You want your wrist to be straight, right? And then you're somewhere around here is setting on the edge of the guitar so that you can reach all the strings with your pick. Okay, so let's just start with a picking exercise. It can also help us to get to know the names of the strings. So we'll start with the 6th string, and we're going to go to the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 1st. And I'll say the letter names too, because we want to get the hang of those letter names. Okay, and then, so we're going to do 4 picks, 4 down picks, right, down towards the floor. 4 down picks on each string, and we want to keep it at a steady tempo, so we're not speeding up or slowing down. Every pick is the same distance apart, right? So 4 on each string. When we get to the top string, after we do 4 on that string, we'll go back down. And when I say top string, I don't mean towards the sky. I mean top sounding the highest. High E is your top string because it sounds the highest. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do 4 picking on each string. And we'll call these quarter notes. Okay, so we'll get into more about what that means in a minute. So here we go. We've got E, D, 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 G, 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 B, 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 E, 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 B, 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 G, 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 D, 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 A, E, E, right? So you might notice that in order so that the strings don't all ring out at the same time, you're eventually going to get a muting technique so that only one string is ringing out at a time, because that's what you're going to do when you play melodies. So now let's do down picks and up picks. Okay, so we'll still do 4, but we'll go down, up on an E string, and then down, up on A, and down, up on D, and so on, right? So we call this alternate picking because you're alternating between down and up picking. So here we go. This is, again, an exercise, warm-up exercise, just to get you used to where the strings are at, right? So eventually you should be able to do this without looking at the strings at all. You should be able to do this with your eyes closed. So let's try it. Ready? 2, 3, play. 1, up, down, up, A string, down, up, D string, down, up, G string, down, up, B string, down, up, E string, down, up, B string, down, up, G string, down, up, D string, down, up, A string, down, low E, down, right? And so as you do this more, you get better at that muting technique, right? You may have noticed I let some of them ring at the beginning, but if you can, try to mute the strings so that, you know, with your palm, right, after you do the first one, you touch briefly, right? You can see I touch, and then touching with my palm, and then picking the next string. Okay, so there's your basic exercise, right? But, oh yeah, one more thing about that. So when you're picking, you want to make sure it's coming from your wrist, okay? Not coming from your whole arm, right? So you don't want to be using your elbow. Your elbow should stay locked, right? It should all be coming from your wrist, down, up. Same for drumming. If you're a drummer, you might know that. It's all coming from your wrist. Okay, and so, what was I going to say? Moving on. Right, so the next thing we'll go over, oh yeah, actually, let's do a little bit more advanced so you can really get the hang of where the strings are at, right? Because that's the whole point of this exercise, is so that you can feel where the strings are at, so you don't have to look so much, and so that you miss less when we actually start adding our left hand, right? Your right hand, you want it to be sort of automatic, so you can think about which notes you're playing rather than which strings you're playing, right? Okay, so let's do one more. We're going to do downstrokes again, and we're going to skip a string. So we'll go E, 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip to 4th string, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Go back to the 5th string that you skipped, 2, 3, 4. Skip a string, go to 3, 2, which is G, 3, 4. Go back to 4, 2, 2, 3. Skip a string, go to B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to G, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to high E, 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to G, 1, 2. I messed up. Back to B, 2, 2, 3. Down to D, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then G, 2, 3, 4. And then A, 2, 3, 4. And then D, 2, 3, 4. And then E. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm not distorting on this. Okay, so, and if you have an acoustic guitar, of course, this applies to acoustic guitar as well. So, I just play this guitar, so, but of course, these things and everything in this course can also apply to acoustic guitar. So, you know, maybe I'll use my acoustic in the next video. Okay, so now we're gonna get into finger numbers, right? So finger numbers only apply in guitar to your left hand. So if you've already played piano also, they're different than the finger numbers in piano. So don't get confused. In piano you have finger numbers on both hands. In guitar, only on your left hand. So the finger numbers, your thumb does not count in guitar, right? Because your thumb's going to be on the back of the neck, right? This here is the neck. Right, and actually you're going to place your thumb in general when you're playing right on the back of the neck, and you'll curve your fingers, right? You don't want your fingers to bend backwards. You want to keep them curved, right? Nice curved hand position with the thumb on the back. But the point that I was making, the finger numbers. So first finger is your index, pointer finger. Second finger is your middle finger. Third finger is your ring finger. And fourth finger is your pinky, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pretty simple. Okay, so now there's 3 different numbers that you'll need to know in the grid system. Okay, we're going to get into the music pretty soon. But the 3 different numbers, of course, are the fret number. You're going to need to know if you're on the 1st fret, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, so on, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? These are the frets. And you play in between the frets, right in the middle. So if I'm going to play the 1st fret, I need to be in between this piece on the end, which is called the nut, and the first metal piece, the 1st fret. So when I say 1st fret, you're actually going to play in between, which is behind the actual 1st metal piece. Alright, so this is 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, and 4th fret. And that's all on the 6th string, so that's the other number, right? So you'll need to know what finger number, 1, 2, 3, or 4, what fret, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then of course what string, which we already talked about, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's a grid system. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. Just try to follow along where I put my fingers and try to use the same fingers as me, and it should work okay. So, let's do an exercise to get used to playing with your right and your left hand at the same time. So we're just going to do down picks only, and only with your wrist, right? And now, again, with your thumb on the back, vertical, your thumb should be vertical, right in the center of the back, right? And we're going to pick on the 6th string first, all down picks. We're going to go open, meaning no left hand, open string, just like we were doing with the picking exercise. Those are all open strings. So we're going to do open on a down pick, and then 1st finger, 1st fret, and then 2nd finger, 2nd fret, and then 3rd finger, 3rd fret, and then 4th finger, 4th fret, and then the next string open, and then 1st finger, 1st fret, 2nd finger, 2nd fret. This is all on the 5th string now. 3rd finger, 3rd fret, 4th finger, 4th fret, and then we move up to the 4th string, the D string, open, and then we go 1st finger, 1st fret, then we go 2nd finger, 2nd fret. You're catching the pattern here. Then we go 3rd finger, 3rd fret, 4th finger, 4th fret, and then we go open to the next string, the G string, and then we go 1st finger, 1st fret on the G string, 2nd finger, 2nd fret, 3rd finger, 3rd fret, and on the G string we're not going to use our 4th finger. It's weird, but the reason is because the 4th finger would actually sound the same as the next string. You'll maybe possibly have already figured that out if you remember when we were tuning with the 5th, and then it was the 4th fret when we used the 3rd string. But anyways, so on the 3rd string, let's do the 3rd string again. You go open, 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger, and then you don't use 4th, you go to the B string, open, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the high E string, open, 1st finger, 1st fret, 2nd finger, 2nd fret, right, and so on. And when you get to 4th finger and 4th fret on that high E string, just turn around. So we're not going to repeat that note, we just turn around. Open, and then 4th finger on the B string, and then open, and then 3rd finger on the G string, and then 4th finger on the 4th string, and use all down picks. I know I may have accidentally used some up picks because I'm so used to it. That's what you'll do when you get more advanced, and then 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and open, right? Okay, so now the trick when you're going down, so let's start up at the top, right? When you're going down, you don't just want to place only your pinky and then only your third finger and then only your second finger and then only your first finger, right? You could do that. But if someone saw that, they would say, oh, he must have just started. He's just getting the hang of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get more used to it, you'll realize that maybe this is how you want to do it. By doing all of your fingers down on each fret and then just release one at a time, right? So, and then place all of them. For the third string, place 3 of them. Place all of them. Place all of them. Place all of them. Okay, and then let's see if I can do it a little faster. So. Right, and then so actually when you get really fast, maybe you're not pressing them all at the same time because it would require too much motion. So. Right, so this is our exercise, and that's the speed that we want to go for. It may take some time to get there. And of course, you know, this is the kind of thing that you can do like just while you're like sitting and watching TV, you know. If a commercial comes on or even during this show, you know, I'll do this like just sitting there even with my volume off, or if you're on acoustic, just playing lightly. Just getting used to the, so that eventually you don't have to think about it. Right? And you know, that's kind of the goal with these exercises, is that they should be natural, so that when you're actually playing music, you can think about being musical rather than thinking about your technique. You get that right? Okay. Oh yeah, so one quick thing I was going to mention during tuning. Now if you have an electric guitar, well actually if you have this kind of guitar you probably already know this, but maybe not. So if you have a floating bridge, right, this here is your bridge where the strings all end. And if you have a floating bridge, meaning you can use your bar to bend up and down, right? If you have a floating bridge, then when you tune, if you tune them in order, how I was talking about the tension from tuning the higher strings, then affecting the lower strings, and so there's actually an order that you can tune your strings in so that they will all end up pretty much in tune, balance, right? So if you have a Floyd Rose bridge, you're going to want to tune low E, then high E, then B, then A, then G, then D, in that order, and that should help you a lot. So I had to throw that in there because I know that when I found that out, I used to play on a Floyd Rose bridge all the time, and when I found that out, that just really, really helped me so much. Instead of having to tune 3 or 4 times in a row on that kind of bridge, you can tune maybe once or twice like normal. So I had to throw that in there for those of you that are more advanced, if you're still watching while we're going over the basics. Okay, so we talked about how to hold a pick. We did our picking exercises. We talked about fret numbers. We explained. Okay, so now I promise we're getting to the music. So you notice that when we were doing our chromatic scale, this. Okay, how we did, if it was first fret, we always use first finger. If it was second fret, we always use second finger. If it was third fret, we always use third finger. If it was fourth fret, we always use fourth finger. So we're going to call that the 1 finger per fret method. So if I say 1 finger per fret in open position, right? Open position meaning we're also using the open strings. Otherwise, this would be first position. The position is just whatever your first finger lines up with. So this is open in our chromatic scale because we're using open notes. If you weren't using any open notes and your fingers look like this would be first position. If your first finger lines up with the second fret, then you're in second position. This would be third position. This would be fourth position, fifth position, sixth position, and so on, right? So I might talk about positions, and that is what you will need to know for that, right? And of course I'll remind you. Okay, so we did the chromatic scale, we did position numbers. Okay, now let's now this is pretty much the first thing a lot of guitarists learn when they first start playing guitar, right? So we're gonna play, or it's usually either this or another one. So let's try the song Iron Man. Okay, so you probably heard it in the movies, but actually this came before the movies. Iron Man by Black Sabbath. So now I start with this because this is such a standard for starting on guitar. This is what a lot of people learn first. Okay, so let's play now. So basically, I want you to use only your first finger, and we're only going to use the 6th string, right? Just to get the hang of it. Now, when you actually play the note, I didn't mention this for the chromatic scale, but this is a good point to know. You want to make sure you're not putting the flat part of your finger, pushing the string down with the flat part of your finger. You want to push it down with the very tip of your finger, right? So pointing it into the string, right, with those curved fingers that we talked about. Okay, and for this one, we'll just use first finger, and you'll see why in a minute. Okay, so here's the basic thing. It's going to go open or 0, same thing. Open, 3, 3, 5, 5. And now we'll go to 8, and we'll use second finger and first finger to go 8, 7, 8, 7. And then down to 3, 3, 5, 5. So open, 3, 3, 5, 5. 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 3, 3, 5, 5, and open, 3, 3, 5, 5, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 3, 3, 5, 5, open, 3, 3, 5, 5, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 3, 3, 5, 5. Okay, so now you may be wondering, I have all these fingers, why'd you only tell me to use 2, right? So the reason being, because if you know the song, you may be wondering, that doesn't quite sound like the song. Here's how you can make it sound like the song, and here's why we only used 1 finger. Okay, so now, if that first part was really hard for you, take another time, rewind the video, and make sure you can do it just with the 1 string, the 1 finger before you try this, right? You want to make sure you got that down before you move to this. So this is a little bit more advanced now, and actually this may take you a couple days, a few days maybe before you're at this point. So, or if you're a little bit older or have tried before, then maybe you'll get the hang of it quickly. So now you're going to add, if we're on open, you're always going to add another finger 2 frets higher on the 5th string. So if we were on open on the 6th string, then that means you're going to play 2nd fret on the 5th string. You're going to ring those together. So that would be your open, and we call this a power chord, okay? Because it's powerful, right? Or you might even have heard, like, I don't know, if you listen to some like harder rock or metal, they might crank up their distortion on their guitar. They might crank up their distortion, and it might sound like. So let's just go back to clean setting for a sound. But just so you can hear what we're going for, or if you haven't heard this song, I'm sure you have, probably, maybe. Okay, so back to our clean sound, just to get the hang of this. We want to practice clean until you get the hang of it, because you want to really make sure that you're getting your notes, every single note, to sound clear. And you can't always tell that if you have a distorted sound. So I definitely recommend practice it clean. Once you get the hang of it, then you can mess with your amp settings. And actually, I can maybe talk a little bit about how to use your amp if you have an amp, and how to make it sound like that, or how to get some other cool sounds out of it. But anyways, all right. So, like I said, our open power chord is going to be with the 2nd fret, 5th string, and open on the 6th. So that's that. And then we go up to 3, right? We still the same first finger on 3, but now we're going to have our 3rd finger on 5 of the 5th string. Okay, and then this shape is movable, so I can just slide it up to 5. And this is 5 on the 6th string with 3rd finger on 7 of the 5th string. So let's rewind a little bit. We got, and then we're gonna go up to 8 and 10. So 8 on the 6th string, 10 on the 5th, and we're gonna alternate 8 to 7. And then go down to 3, up to 5, right? Open, 3, 3, 5, 5, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 3, 3, 5, 5, right? So we practiced it first with one finger so you can get the hang of actually moving your whole hand so you can add that 2nd note. And actually, if you are, playing it with the kind of full sound, then I like to actually add two more strings, so using 3 total. You may have noticed that when I demonstrated before. So for the first one, you could just put 2 fingers on the 2nd fret on strings 5 and 4, with again still your open on 6. You could do it like that. I would normally actually bar. So let's talk about what a bar is, right? So instead of using on 1st finger on 5th string 2nd fret and 2nd finger on 4th string 2nd fret, I'm gonna use my 1st finger to cover both of those strings. So my 1st finger is covering the 5th string 2nd fret and the 4th string 2nd fret, and still leave the 6th string open. And we don't want to ring out the 3rd, 2nd, or 1st string. We only want to get these 3 strings. So you want to make sure before we actually play the song, ring out the 3 notes of your chord and make sure that your bar is pressed down. You might have to press down a little harder than usual because you're using 2 strings at once, right? So you're going to do it, ring out the strings just to make sure that they sound okay. So let me get the clean sound again. We've got, okay, so if every note in that chord sounds clear, then that's good. So now we're going to go up to the 3rd fret, and instead of just adding the 1 finger, we'll add 2 fingers, and then slide. You can actually slide. You don't even have to lift your fingers, because actually in the song they do slide. 3, slide to 5, right? Try that again. And then 8, 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 3, 3, 5, 5. So really it's the same frets as the 2-string version, but the 3-string version sounds a little bit fuller because you get 3 notes at a time. Some distortion, make it sound kind of cool. Some have noticed, if you are a more advanced player, or if you just have a really good ear, you may have noticed that I'm doing a little bit more than what I showed. So let's talk about this for the sake of those advanced players that are just dying to do a little bit more. They want to go above and beyond, right? So you may notice, I'll turn my clean sound back on, that I'm actually doing a little bit of muting, right? So if you, like this, right? So I'll go, right? So I went, just because it really sounds cool, especially with the distortion, right? It's, right? It just gives you that like all out kind of like full like energy, right? If you add in that kind of thing, so it keeps the rhythm going, right? So anyways, what I was doing, and then you're still gonna leave your fingers on the strings, but don't push them down, right? So they're just touching the strings, right? And you get that mute in there, right? So like this. Again. Fun slides. It's especially fun when you have an amp. You can crank it up. So, anyways, let's do, before we run out of time, okay, let's do a little bit of one string melody. So, this is a good way to get used to kind of hearing out songs. Maybe you can even play by ear if you get good at this. So we're just gonna take something simple, right? This one's pretty easy, right? So let's just take something like Happy Birthday. So this is great because, you know, it's a perfect opportunity to play for someone. If it's their birthday, it's like, oh, I'm just starting to learn guitar. Here, let me play this for you, and you can surprise your friends on their birthday. So, we'll learn the basic version first, and then next week we're going to add some chords to it. So if you don't know what a chord is, a chord just means you're playing multiple notes at once. Kind of like those power chords. Those are kind of chords, except those really usually only have like 2 notes or maybe 3. But even that third one, if you notice, in those power chords, the third note was actually just the same as the first, but higher. So we call that a different octave, right? So this here was our E, right? And then if we go up to that third note of that power chord, the D string 2nd fret, this is also an E. So really this is only, even if it has 3 strings, it's only a 2-note chord. That's why it's called a power chord. But for other chords, usually you're going to have 3 or more notes, right? So we'll get into that later, as I said. But here's how you play Happy Birthday, right? And so let's do also mostly just first finger, right? Just to get used to it. So we'll start, and we've got, let's do open, open, 2, open, 5, 4, right? Open, open, 2, open, 7, 5, open, open, 12, the double dots, 9, 5, 4, 2, and then go up to 10, 10, 10, 9, 5, 7, 5. Okay, so the whole thing, try to follow along if you can. Again, you can slow it down if you need to. So here we go, we've got So you may have noticed that I may slide in between some notes. Oh, oops. So you can slide, where you like to kind of make it your own, right? Your own expression. And you may have noticed that I kind of wiggle my finger back and forth. We call that vibrato. And maybe you can even hear the difference, right? So just a flat sound, no vibrato. But if we give it a little bit of vibrato, you can hear a little bit of kind of wiggliness in the sound, which can sound really pretty if you do it right, right? But the trick with vibrato is that you don't want to use it all the time. You don't want to overuse it. Because you just want to use it, it's like a little bit of spice. You throw it on that note. But you don't, or throw it on that note. You don't want to put too much spice on every note, because then it doesn't taste good. But anyways, so we're going to get into next week a little bit of chords. So maybe you can, if you have a friend that also has a guitar, one of you can play the chords and one of you can play the melody for happy birthday. Or and we're gonna get into a little bit of scales. So this is preview for next week, but scales are how you get really, really, really good at guitar. And so I'm really excited to get into some of that with you guys. Scales are like really my go-to default. If I only have a little bit of time to practice, I'm gonna practice scales. It's the most bang for your buck, as they say, right? And if you learn enough scales, like all the major ones, then you can pretty much, if you get really good at all of those scales and can pick them out pretty okay, then you can pretty much play anything that you hear. Right? So it's really good to learn those scales so that you can translate what you hear onto the guitar. So that's something that interests you. Like if you hear a song, you're like, man, how do they do that? And you're like looking it up, you can't find it, right? Then it's good to be able to do it yourself, just to be able to actually speak the language of music, rather than just having to depend on, hopefully someone typed this up on the internet so I can play this song, right? Or if you get stuck, of course, feel free to comment on the video and you can ask me. So if there's something that you're really stuck on, feel free to comment and let me know, and I would be glad to help you out. All right. So that just about does it for this week's lesson. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And happy practicing. I'll see you guys next time.